why does agriculture need to change? Agriculture sustainability relies on, I will say, 4 major pillars. The first one is land, obviously. Second one is water. Third is labor. And the last one is fertilizers, or specifically industrially produced fertilizers. So let's dive quickly into each of them. First, water. The UN expects that by 2050, 1.3 billion more people will face water scarcity on a regular basis. This is up from only 700 million people today facing this on a daily basis. This is obviously an issue that in this part of the world we're well aware of and have been for forever, but this issue is becoming global. Regions like California, where I lived for many years, as I mentioned, are experiencing more and more droughts. Regions like Europe, where I grew up, is also experiencing increasing frequent droughts. This is becoming a global concern. Again, from 700 million to 2 billion people facing regular droughts in the next 25 years. Next, we have labor shortages. That's a big concern in a lot of different regions in the world, not only in the US, but also in Europe, in China, in South America, and so on. This is actually a good news. You can argue that jobs on the field are some of the toughest jobs in any economy. So it's actually a good news that with the rising income levels of those different regions, these jobs are not attracting a lot of people. But it's obviously very bad news for farmers who rely on them to do their daily tasks. And with the increasing tensions related to immigrations in different parts of the world, this is becoming harder and harder for countries to compensate the lack of domestic labor with immigration. So that's a really big concern for a lot of farmers throughout the world. And then we have greenhouse gas emissions. At a recent COP, a few miles from here, and a few months ago, it was agreed upon that agriculture as an industry needs to first decrease by 25% greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. This is very, very soon, 6 years from now. And secondly, need to not only reach net zero emissions, but actually become a carbon negative industry by 2050. Needless to say, this is a huge challenge, and we're very far from there today. And then we have the land. Arable land is actually forecasted to slightly increase. That's a UN forecast, about 4%, represented here by the green line. But the problem is population is growing much faster. Today, there are about 7 billion people who can afford to have a healthy diet, locally for them. By 2050, population growth will add 1.5 billion mouths to feed. And then another 0.5 or 500 million people will, that's a great news, get out of poverty. But what that means is that the 7 billion mouths to feed today are going to turn into 9 billion. So to be very concrete, 1 hectare of arable land today, on average, throughout the world, feeds 5 people. That's basic division between the two numbers. By 2050, we need that number to become 6. We essentially need to find a way for agriculture to feed a 6th person with the same land. So that's a challenge. Agriculture is facing a very big challenge, feeding more people by using the same amount of land, or about the same amount of land, drastically less water, drastically less labor, and drastically, almost zero, or even more than zero, negative carbon emissions. This is the great challenge. But I think it's also an amazing opportunity for agriculture to modernize.